Imagine this. You wake up one morning, check your phone, and the headline reads, Iran just fired over 300 missiles and drones at Israel in a single night from its own soil for the first time in history. Not a proxy attack, not through Hezbollah, not through some shadowy militia in Iraq or Yemen. Iran itself, directly, openly, without apology. And the entire world froze, because that night, April 13th, 2024, wasn't just an attack. It was a declaration that the Middle East has a new military reality, and it is built on Iranian missiles. Today, we are going inside that story, how a country strangled by sanctions, cut off from global finance, unable to buy spare parts for its own commercial airplanes, somehow built the most dangerous missile program in the entire Middle East. A program that keeps American generals awake at night. A program that has fundamentally changed what a war in that region would look like, and what it would cost, American lives included. This is not about politics. This is documented military reality, and it starts with a war most Americans have forgotten. September 1980, Saddam Hussein invades Iran. He expects a quick victory against a country in revolutionary chaos. What he gets instead is 8 years of one of the bloodiest wars of the 20th century. Over 1 million dead, cities destroyed. And throughout those 8 years, Iraqi Scud missiles were raining down on Iranian cities, on civilians, on Tehran itself, and Iran could barely fire back. That helplessness burned into the soul of the Iranian military. The humiliation of watching your cities get hit while you stand there with nothing to shoot back with. The lesson was written in the blood of Iranian civilians. Never again would Iran be defenseless against an enemy with missiles. From that vow, one of the most secretive, most disciplined, most consequential weapons programs in modern history was born. But who actually built it? This is where the story gets interesting. It wasn't the regular Iranian army. It was the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC. These are not ordinary soldiers. The IRGC was created to protect the revolution itself, and they answer to one person only, the supreme leader. Not the president, not the parliament, the supreme leader. They run their own businesses, their own banks, their own intelligence networks, and most importantly, they run their own aerospace force, their own missile command, their own launch facilities buried deep underground across Iran. The IRGC is essentially a state within a state, and for 40 years, their most sacred project, their most funded obsession, has been the missile program. Now here is the question that should genuinely blow your mind. How do you build a world-class missile program when you cannot buy the parts? When you are sanctioned by every major Western nation? When your engineers cannot travel freely, cannot access foreign universities without being watched, cannot import critical technology? You find friends in unusual places. Iran's first serious missiles came from North Korea. In the late 1980s and 1990s, North Korea was selling Scud missiles to anyone willing to pay. Iran paid. A lot. They acquired the Scud-B, the Scud-C, and crucially, they bought the technical knowledge to manufacture their own. Iran called their first domestic version the Shahab 1, then Shahab 2, crude, inaccurate, but they were a foundation. The real ambition came with the Shahab 3, a medium-range ballistic missile based on North Korean technology. Range of 1,300 kilometers, enough to reach Israel, enough to hit every American base in the Gulf region. The United States and Israel pressured suppliers, cut off components, sanctioned companies, and the program kept moving, because Iran had learned the single most important lesson of strategic weapons development. You cannot depend on anyone else. Every component, every part, domestic, self-sufficient, or you are always vulnerable. And they achieved it. Slowly, painfully, expensively, they achieved complete domestic production capability. So what does Iran actually have today? Let's talk numbers, because the numbers are genuinely staggering. Iran operates the largest and most diverse ballistic missile arsenal in the entire Middle East. No serious defense analyst disputes this. Start with the Fateh family, solid fuel missiles. And solid fuel matters enormously, because solid fuel missiles sit ready to fire with almost no preparation time. Liquid fuel missiles need to be fueled up before launch, giving an adversary a window to detect and destroy them. Solid fuel removes that window entirely. The Fateh series ranges from 300 to 700 kilometers in range, with notable accuracy improvements over older Iranian systems. Then, there are the medium-range systems, the Qiyam. The Emad, which Iran claims carries a maneuverable re-entry vehicle, meaning it adjusts course during the final phase of flight, making it harder to intercept. The God, with a range of nearly 2,000 kilometers, Israel is squarely within range. Every American base in the Gulf is within range. And then there is the Khorramshahr, a missile that genuinely changed the conversation. Range of around 2,000 kilometers, believed capable of carrying multiple warheads on a single missile. Multiple warheads. That matters enormously for missile defense. Defense systems are designed to intercept one warhead per incoming missile. If a single missile releases 3 or 4 warheads simultaneously, you run out of interceptors before you run out of incoming threats. Iran tested the Khorramshahr publicly, put it on national television. They wanted the world to see it. That was not a test, that was a message. But the most alarming development came in 2023. Iran unveiled the Fattah, a hypersonic ballistic missile, allegedly capable of Mach 13 to Mach 15, 13 to 15 times the speed of sound. And it reportedly uses a maneuverable hypersonic glide vehicle, meaning it doesn't follow the predictable arc of a conventional ballistic missile. It glides, it maneuvers, it changes course mid-flight. Here's why that matters so much. Traditional ballistic missiles follow a physics-based arc. You calculate the trajectory, position an interceptor, problem mathematically solvable, though incredibly difficult. A hypersonic glide vehicle flies at lower altitude, inside the atmosphere, and maneuvers unpredictably. Today's missile defense systems were simply not designed to handle it. Whether the Fateh performs exactly as claimed remains debated by Western analysts. Iran does exaggerate, but the underlying technology is real, and even partial capability represents a serious threat to existing defense architecture. Now here's where the story becomes even more dangerous, because missiles are only half of what Iran built. Drones. The Iranian Shahed 136 kamikaze drone costs approximately $20,000 to produce, maybe less. It flies at low altitude, is difficult to detect on radar, and carries an explosive warhead. The Patriot interceptor missile used to shoot it down costs around $2 million. You are spending 100 times as much to destroy something as it costs to build. Iran provided thousands of these drones to Russia, which has used them relentlessly against Ukraine. That deployment has been an enormous real-world testing ground. Iran has watched, learned, and improved. The lessons from Ukrainian skies are flowing directly back into Iranian military development. And here is the tactical genius of combining drones with ballistic missiles. You fire cheap drones first. They exhaust interceptor supplies. They distract radar operators. They burn through the defender's magazine. Then, when air defenses are stretched thin, you fire precision ballistic missiles at the targets you actually want to destroy. It is a deliberate, layered strategy, and it was exactly what happened on April 13, 2024. Let's spend a moment on that night, because it deserves more than a headline. Iran launched approximately 170 drones, over 30 cruise missiles, and more than 120 ballistic missiles toward Israel, from Iranian soil, over 1,500 kilometers away. The attack was largely intercepted, with Israel and the United States, United Kingdom, and Jordan all participating in the defense. Israeli officials claimed a 99% interception rate, and many people looked at that and said, "See, Iran's missiles aren't that threatening. They were stopped." That is exactly the wrong conclusion. Here's the right one. Iran fired over 300 weapons in a single night and forced 4 countries, including the United States and United Kingdom, to scramble defensive assets to protect Israel. American warships fired interceptors from the Red Sea and Eastern Mediterranean. American fighter jets shot down Iranian drones. The entire Allied air defense network of the region was activated for a single Iranian strike. That is not weakness. That is leverage. That is Iran demonstrating that it can generate a military crisis requiring a multi-nation response whenever it decides to. And it can do it again and again. And here's the part that almost no mainstream coverage mentioned. Iran almost certainly held back. The April attack was calibrated. Iranian officials telegraphed it hours in advance, giving Israel and its partners full time to prepare. Iran has missiles it did not fire that night, capabilities it did not reveal. The April attack was a signal, not a maximum effort. Let that settle for a moment. Now the hardest question. How did this happen? How does a sanctioned, isolated country achieve this? 3 reasons, and they are worth understanding clearly. First, motivation. Iran's leadership looked at the world and drew an entirely rational conclusion. The United States spent decades pursuing regime change in Iran, explicitly or implicitly, and they watched what happened to leaders who disarmed. Saddam Hussein dismantled his weapons programs. He ended up executed. Muammar Gaddafi gave up his nuclear and missile development in 2003. In 2011, he was overthrown and killed. When you believe the world's most powerful military is oriented toward your destruction, and you have watched what disarmament actually produces, you invest in deterrence, no matter what it costs. Second, strategy. Iran did not try to match American conventional military power. That is mathematically impossible with a defense budget 1/100th the size. Instead, Iran chose asymmetric deterrence. Missiles, drones, proxies, capabilities specifically designed to impose unbearable costs, even in a losing conventional war. The goal is never to defeat America in a direct fight. The goal is to make the cost of fighting Iran so catastrophically high that the decision to start that fight becomes unthinkable. Third, time. 40 years. This program was built across 4 decades of consistent national investment. Stuxnet, the famous cyber attack almost certainly conducted by the US and Israel, set back Iran's nuclear centrifuge program by perhaps 2 years. Assassinations of Iranian scientists killed individuals, but they did not kill institutional knowledge. They did not destroy the program. The engineers trained others. The program adapted. The program continued. 40 years of patient, disciplined, nationally prioritized investment produces results. Even under sanctions, Iran is the living proof. Now let's talk geography, because geography explains why American policymakers lose sleep over this. Within 2,000 kilometers of Tehran sits the 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain, Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, the largest American airbase in the Middle East, Al Dhafra in the UAE, Al Asad in Iraq, the Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of the world's daily oil supply flows, and Israel. Iran does not need intercontinental ballistic missiles to hold American interests at risk. American interests are already inside existing Iranian missile range. Every base, every ship, every ally reachable today. And then there is the proxy network, because Iran did not just build missiles for itself. Hezbollah in Lebanon possesses an estimated 100,000 to 150,000 rockets and missiles, many Iranian-supplied or designed. The Houthis in Yemen have used Iranian ballistic missiles to attack Saudi Arabia and disrupt global Red Sea shipping so severely that major international shipping companies rerouted thousands of miles away from the Suez Canal, costing the global economy billions. Shia militias in Iraq have repeatedly struck American bases with Iranian drones and rockets. This network is Iran's other strategic masterpiece. Even if you somehow destroyed every missile inside Iran, the capability lives on, in Lebanon, in Yemen, in Iraq. Dispersed, decentralized, resilient. You cannot bomb away knowledge that already exists in the hands of thousands of fighters across 5 countries. And woven through all of this is the nuclear question. Iran is currently enriching uranium to 60% purity. Weapons grade is 90%. The technical gap between 60% and weapons grade is, for a program as advanced as Iran's, a matter of weeks, if the political decision is made to cross that line. A ballistic missile with a conventional warhead is a serious weapon. A ballistic missile with a nuclear warhead is a civilization-altering threat. The combination of Iran's missile capability and its near-nuclear status is the most consequential proliferation scenario on Earth right now. And there's no clean solution in sight. Military strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities have been wargamed extensively. The conclusion is consistent. Iran's facilities are hardened, dispersed, buried under mountains. a strike could not destroy all of them. In the aftermath, Iran retaliates with missiles against Israel, against American bases, against Gulf oil infrastructure, activates every proxy from Lebanon to Yemen. The region ignites, and Iran, having survived the strike, accelerates its nuclear program to completion as fast as humanly possible. The military option, in most serious analysis, makes the problem worse, not better. Which leaves us here, in the world we actually inhabit. A world where Iran has a missile program that cannot be realistically destroyed. Where Iran is weeks from nuclear capability, if it chooses. Where Iran has demonstrated the will to use these tools directly, not just through proxies. Where the architecture of deterrence in the Middle East has fundamentally shifted. For American foreign policy, this means the era of easy dominance in that region is over. Iran has methodically raised the cost of confrontation to a level where the traditional American playbook, overwhelming conventional force, regime change, coercive diplomacy, no longer produces predictable outcomes. For American allies in the region, it means a fundamentally different threat environment. Israel's air defenses are world-class, but not unlimited. Saturate them enough times from enough directions, and something gets through. In a country as small and dense as Israel, even one missile getting through can mean thousands of casualties. For you, sitting here in the United States, it means gas prices, global shipping costs, and the risk of American military casualties in the Gulf region are all permanently connected to decisions made in Tehran. This program did not come from nowhere. It came from fear, from humiliation, from a cold-blooded reading of history, and from 40 years of an entire nation betting its survival on a single strategic calculation. The missiles are real. The range is real. The capability is real. And the world that Iran's missile program has created is the world that every American president from here forward will have to navigate. Understanding how it was built is the first step to understanding what comes next.